On Business Incorporated today, Rwanda gets approval to be the first Africa to access climate fund. South Africa retail confidence drops as food prices soar. Kenya Power incurs a loss of 3.66 billion shillings from electricity subsidy plan. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Incorporated here on Channels Television. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's get it started, and we start with market numbers starting in Africa. Good news for Africa market is mostly positive sentiment for major markets on the continent as intraday. The Nigerian bourse makes a significant performance as intraday, recovered from that negative sentiment it had intraday yesterday and went on to close positive, sustaining that now almost 0.5% at intraday, more than 49,000. It's regained that 49,000 level. South Africa, the JSE is also up, or more than that, 0.44% at 74,746.49 as intraday. Looking at other parts of the market there in Africa, Egypt is strongly in the positive 2.78, while Kenya closed Monday's trade also positive 0.10. We move from there now to the Middle East, and there it's a reverse position for major markets indexes that we track. In the UAE, it's more than 1% down. So if that's for Abu Dhabi is more than 1% down at 10,049.7. For Dubai is also in the negative 0.51%. The negative sentiment spreading over the UAE market there. Qatar is also following that trend, 0.61% down, while Saudi Arabia is the only positive at intraday, more than 2%, hoping that it will stay that way to the close of trade on Tuesday. Well, let's move over to Europe, and believe it or not, allegations of bribery and corruption is what we're going to talk about, and it's within the highest echelon of lawmaking. It sent shockwaves across the continent. Authorities in Belgium have raided several properties, including that of Eva Kaili, who was a senior vice president in the European Parliament. She and 3 others are accused of taking bribes from Qatar in order to help the Gulf state to win influence. Well, the case has also put the spotlight on Qatar's business ties with Europe. We have Kate joining us for the second time this week to give us details. Hi, Kate. Well, we would really love to know the background on this story, knowing that we're not talking about Africa now, but talking about Europe.
Well, this is a pretty extraordinary scandal. The story broke on Friday when it emerged that European Parliament Vice President Eva Kaili was one of 4 individuals that had been arrested as part of a bribery investigation. Now, Belgian police have seized a total of around 600,000 euros in cash as part of their searches of several properties. And the allegation is that Qatar has been targeting the European Parliament for months, offering money or large gifts to individuals in exchange for good publicity. Now, Eva Kaili is a very high-ranking lawmaker, and she has special responsibility for the Middle East. Over the past while, she'd been making a number of statements in support of Qatar. So, for example, she recently referred to the country as a front-runner in labour rights, and this is despite the highly publicised concerns about the conditions of migrant workers who built the stadiums for the World Cup. The idea that a foreign state would be able to wield influence at such a high level here in Europe has come as quite a shock, and it has prompted questions about the means Qatar uses to boost its international image.
You brought about Qatar there. Tell us more about Qatar's involvement when it comes to the business of Europe.
So economic ties between Qatar and the European Union are actually on the rise. Qatar, of course, is an important exporter of gas, and in turn it buys substantial amounts of machinery and industrial equipment from the EU. It's also been investing heavily in European businesses. So just to give you a few prominent examples, here in Germany, it holds significant stakes in Volkswagen, Deutsche Bank, Siemens and Hapag-Lloyd. It also owns French football club Paris Saint-Germain and is a major shareholder in Swiss mining company Glencore. And if you look at the other way, European businesses like Total Energies, Volkswagen, Siemens and SAP, they've all been establishing a foothold in Qatar. But these allegations of bribery have really forced Europeans to examine the relationship more closely, because it also comes at an awkward time geopolitically. Europe has been working very hard to wean itself off Russian gas, and it had been looking to Qatar, among others, as an alternative supplier. This will have many asking questions about whom Europeans should be doing business with.
I tell you, Kate, that's a whole lot of a tight relationship being threatened at this time. So what are investors saying? They must be reacting to all of this.
So investors will definitely be keeping an eye on a meeting of energy ministers who are trying to come to an agreement on an EU-wide cap on gas prices. Countries are divided over whether this is a good idea. Some, like Italy, say a common cap is needed to shield their economies from high prices. But not everyone feels the same. Germany, for example, fears that it could actually divert gas away from the continent. Apart from that, staying here in Germany, consumer sentiment data as well as inflation numbers are coming out. That will give a really good indication of how Europe's largest economy is faring right now and whether things are looking up. There are some bright spots, you see. Travel demand is up. The world's biggest travel group, TUI, is expecting a really strong summer season. And that will also provide a really needed boost to the aviation industry. We're already seeing the effect with many airlines wheeling out the A380 passenger jet once again. Now, of course, it had been all but relegated to the scrap heap during the pandemic, and its comeback really shows how much demand has surged again. So we have a lot of things to look out for today.
All right, Kay, thank you so much. A lot to mention tomorrow. All right, so let's move to London now with Juliana standing by. Juliana, good afternoon. It seems like Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is caught in between the devil and the Black Sea, I don't know, talking about immigration policy and the shortage, UK staff shortage. And a lot of conversations seem to be going on around that.
You're absolutely right. Good afternoon, Innie. In any moment now, we're expecting a statement by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, basically outlining his government's immigration plan before MPs break for Christmas. And it's important he does this because immigration is always going to be at the top of the agenda for any Conservative government, alongside, of course, the economy and the NHS, because it's immigration that led us to leave the European Union. But I think we're specifically focusing on the issue pertaining to the Channel crossing. We know that this year so far 45,000 individuals have crossed the Channel illegally. In fact, even in the bitter cold in the past couple of days, there have been about 600 people that have made their way from Calais to Dover. This was all brought up in the spotlight because of the issue surrounding the Manston Detention Centre, which has subsequently been closed, but at the peak it was housing about 4,000 asylum seekers when it was only supposed to have about 400. So that's the main issue, and there have been extensive conversations over the past couple of weeks between Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, and the Albanian Prime Minister, and it's about Albanians that we're expecting to hear Rishi Sunak talk about, because of those 45,000 people that have come into the UK, 30% are from Albania. And what Tory MPs, backbench MPs who Rishi Sunak is trying to appease, they deem Albania to be a safe country. They don't think there is anybody that's living there unless, of course, you are a victim of human trafficking, which is another issue that the government are going to have to talk about. You shouldn't be coming to the UK. So they have made an arrangement with the Albanian government, which will include fast-tracking asylum seekers. So if you are one of those individuals that come into the UK on a small boat from Albania, there should be a system that's put in place to fast-track you within 48 hours to go on a return flight back. Now, that is what we are expecting to hear about. No news, I'm afraid, for our Nigerian viewers and the tens of thousands of Nigerians that come into the UK important to say legally, also important to say that most of the Nigerians that are coming into the UK are paying a hefty fee to do so and contribute significantly to this economy. But again, of course, Rishi Sunak does have to appease his backbenchers, particularly the Red Wall MPs, many of whom have had to deal with the asylum seekers, particularly those coming from Manston, and house them in local hotels. That obviously costs the taxpayer money, and Tory MPs believe if Rishi Sunak doesn't resolve this issue imminently, then they could potentially lose their seats in the upcoming general elections, whether it's in 2023 or late 2024, Inni.
Yeah, that's a bone for the Prime Minister to chew there and find a balance, you know. And good you mentioned Nigeria there, because, you know, broadcasting from Nigeria, a lot of Nigerians have their ears like, I need to hear how this concerns me and all of that. But let's look at the markets now. How's that looking at this time?
Well, despite the gloomy data we received this morning from the Office for National Statistics outlining the labour market, showing that private sector pay may be rising but not rising as fast as inflation, there seems to be a pretty good picture for investors today. I think this is because of the rise in the oil markets. Brent crude has risen up. That's shot up the blue chip index. The all share in intraday is up 0.31%. The FTSE 100 is up by 0.28%. And the FTSE 250, the domestic market, that's up by more than 0.5%. In the currencies market, the British pound continues its rally against the US dollar. It's currently trading up against the dollar by 0.17%, also trading up against the euro by 0.19%. And the British pound at intraday is up against the Japanese yen by 0.20%, Inni.
Thank you so much, Juliana. Enjoy the rest of your day. Let's move to other markets now. In Asia, Asia-Pacific shares opened in positive territory as investors look ahead to a highly anticipated Federal Reserve meeting and the US CPI data. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was up, recovered yesterday. This market was deeply in the red. Most of the numbers that we had was in the red. But today we see a reversal of that, starting with Nikkei 225. It's in the green, almost 0.5%, 0.40 at 27,954.85. Shanghai Composite also in the green, 0.09%, 3,176.33. Hang Seng Index also in the green, more than 0.5% there, more than 19,000. S&P AX of Australia in the green, 0.31%, and the Topix Index also almost 0.5%. Doing so well in the Asia market at the close of trade for some of them and intraday for some of them. And then we go to the United States, where stock futures were fractionally higher early Tuesday as Wall Street braced for November's key inflation report and the beginning of the Federal Reserve December meeting. It ends tomorrow, and we do expect, of course, to get those numbers here on the program. Futures tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average inched 0.17% higher, while futures connected to the S&P 500 and Nasdaq 100 added 0.18% and 0.21% respectively. Oracle shares gained nearly 2% after hours on strong quarterly results. Investors are looking ahead to the release of those numbers. We talked about the CPI today, and then the FOMC meeting, which should be concluded by tomorrow. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll head to Africa. We'll have some conversations and more stories for you here on Business Incorporated on Channels Television. Welcome back to watching Business Incorporated here on Channels Television. Well, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, Nigeria contributes 71% to global yam production of 72,580 tons. In spite of this huge and impressive percentage and leadership position in yam production, Nigeria is not able to export yams in commercial quantities. Unlike Nigeria, Ghana is the leading exporter of yam in the world, controlling 24% of yam exports globally, valued at $48 million. There goes the foreign exchange Nigeria is looking for. So what's really happening? Well, we have Victoria Momo joining us now from Victoria Island. Victoria from Victoria Island joining us now to discuss yam. Hi, Victoria. Good afternoon.
Hi, Ine. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's talk about, before we export, I guess we have to feed ourselves first. In the country, we saw that the price of yam ranged from 400 naira to about 2,200 naira. I know that this year has been kind of crazy when it comes to prices, commodity. Is this just about the global headwinds, or is this about Nigeria? What pushed this abnormal long swing in the price?
Like you rightly said, it's not just a Nigeria thing, it's a global thing. I mean, countries around the world are battling with, high prices of commodity, and Nigeria is not, a maverick. Yam is one of the commodities that we produce here in Nigeria. And we've, recorded a swing in price of yam, from 400 and now to 2,200. And it's very important to note that the demand, the availability and price of yam is, dependent on the harvest period, the planting period, and harvest period also contains the New Yam Festival. So both of these seasonalities have actually driven, the price of yam in the market. So, however, recently, we've not noticed as much reduction in the price of yam, which is typical of the harvest season. And this is due to the fact that we still have like prices rising up, and we are not getting the benefit of our harvest. And if you remember, we have the issue of flood, which caused food shortage, not just yams, food shortage across regions in Nigeria. So all of these are filtered into the prices of commodity, and not just yam. We also have the issue of insecurity in the yam producing regions in Nigeria that have affected the price of yam. States like Benue State and other states that produce yam are battling with insecurity, farm headers clashes, which has caused so many farmers to leave their farms. And as a result of that, we've noticed a reduction in not just yam production, but every other commodities that are produced in that region. So these are filtered into the price of the commodity, causing it to increase. And of course, we expect that this would continue due to the fact that planting season would begin. And as a result of that, the shortage, the planting season is characterized by shortage. And once that shortage occurs, we'll see a corresponding increase in price. Not to forget that Lagos also battles with high logistic costs and the likes, which is also filtered into the price.
So how has this affected demand for yam, but not just yam? You have some derivatives from that, and even substitute. Are the substitute getting the attention that yam is supposed to get?
Yeah, I mean, if we have two substitutes, like for example, yam and cassava flour, and normal economists would say that once a price of a substitute increase, the demand for the other one, increases in tandem. So if the price of yam increases, we'll see, a corresponding decline in yam derivatives like the yam flour and every other thing that the yam is used for. And for the substitutes like cassava flour, people would, opt to those substitutes. Cost of living is rising, and of course, people are trying to, spend their money wisely and also, live instead of, just suffering.
So briefly now, how do we expect this to affect farming, yam farmers, next year?
Okay, so the increase in price of yam, would cause a decline in the demand for yam, because people are trying to cut down costs and they will switch to other alternatives. So this is not good for yam farmers, because what motivates yam farmers is the demand for yam. I mean, when the market is wide enough, I would be motivated to produce. But once we have like a decline in demand, or there are projections that demand for yam would reduce, it would not motivate farmers to produce more. Don't forget that farmers are also still battling with several issues like poor seedling, poor incentive, all of this merged together, including the weak demand, would make the future of yam production in Nigeria.
Victoria, thank you so much for giving us that background story to yam production in Nigeria. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for having me.
Let's move from Nigeria to Rwanda, where the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund has approved Rwanda's request for an arrangement under the Resilience and Sustainability Facility, amounting to SDR of $240.3 million. That's about $319 million. Rwanda is the first African country to secure access to RSF, which was created this year with the aim of helping low-income and vulnerable middle-income IMF members address longer-term structural challenges, such as climate change, with longer-term low-cost financing. And from there, we move to South Africa, where the country's retail confidence has dropped as consumers became frantically constrained by rising food prices and interest rates, while power cuts reduced trading hours for shopping. Data from the Bureau for Economic Research latest retail trade survey shows that retail confidence has dropped from 51% in the third quarter to 42% in quarter four. The result of this survey comes as headline consumer inflation remained elevated at 7.6% in the fourth quarter, above the South African Reserve Bank's upper limit of 3 to 6%, and that's driven by food and fuel prices. And then we go to Ghana, where the International Monetary Fund have reached a preliminary agreement for the fund to support the economy with $3 billion credit to help resuscitate it and correct fiscal and monetary imbalances. The proposed 3-year extended credit facility was approved by the staff of the IMF. Well, finally on the show, Kenya Power incurred a loss of $3.66 billion following a 9-month government-backed electricity subsidy plan that was aimed at cushioning consumers from high energy bills. The government kept electricity prices constant between December last year and September this year to prevent an increase in power costs pushed by high fuel and currency fluctuation costs to appease Kenyans ahead of the August polls amid a high cost of living. The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority kept the fuel cost charge and foreign exchange fluctuation adjustment rate, which are adjusted monthly to cater to changes in the market cost of fuel and forex exchange during the period. That's the much we can take on Business Incorporated this Tuesday afternoon. We do have another episode tomorrow, so we'll have more stories and fresh conversations for you. Do join us then. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.